How's it going, everybody? My name is Seth, and this is the Gray Rush Podcast. Today on the podcast, we're going to have Aldo Ancheta, who is the Asset Management Director or Director of Asset Management for Dominion Senior Living. He's got over 10 years of experience in the space, and we talk on a number of super interesting points. One of them being lead generation and management, like how teams can kind of work through making sure that they follow up with leads in an efficient way, and the systems that they use and some of the KPIs that they use, such as calls and things like that. So we get into some pretty technical stuff there. We talk about what a director of asset management is, and is that job important? And we talk a bit about the stress that executive directors go through, and just a super informative piece to let anyone who wants to know about this space know how they could better support their community and the teams they work with, the residents that they are taking care of, and things of that nature. So without further ado, the Gray Rush Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Gray Rush Senior Living Business Growth Podcast.
Wow.
Today we have Aldo Ancheta, who is the Director of Asset Management for Dominion Senior Living.
That's right.
I believe they have, correct me if I'm wrong, in all properties under management, 17 communities?
17 communities
17
across
communities.
3 states. That's right.
Yeah. So I'm just really excited to have you here. I've known Aldo for quite a while in a number of different facets, but when I first met him, I believe you were the executive director at Morning Point.
In Calhoun. That's right.
Calhoun,
Mm-hmm.
which was that your first kind of run of the gig?
That was my
in the
first
industry?
executive director job.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
did you get into senior living, and why?
Man, that's a good question. That's a good question. So let's take it back to 2006.
Okay.
So
I was just born.
Yeah, right.
No.
Pretty much.
Not really.
Pretty much. So I was at Southern, and I was actually majoring in biochemistry.
Okay,
I
wow.
was a pre-dent biochem major. So my goal was to become a dentist. I wanted to be a dentist. That's my whole life. Not my whole life, but in the last, recent years before
Sure.
that, I was like, yeah, dentistry is my thing, man. I'm going to go into that,
Did someone inspire you? Or is it just like,
I felt like it was a good fit for me because I like, dealing with my hands. I like fixing stuff. I like,
Mm-hmm.
doing that sort of thing. And I wanted to do something in the medical field, right? And
Nice.
so, I kind of have that knack, maybe. I don't know, maybe I don't, but I thought I did back then, so I majored in that. So my first year, it was, packed full of all kind of science courses, math, and, all this stuff. And the second year, actually, the second summer, I read the book by Robert Kiyosaki. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay.
And I was like, business is for me.
Yeah.
So I was like, what?
Yeah. I was just going to say, it's such an inspiring book to so many people.
It is.
It really is. It was
Yeah.
the first book recommended to me when I even considered business for the first time.
Yeah. It's a paradigm shift
Mhm.
to typical thinking, right? And so I felt it, speak to me. I was like, yeah, this kind of resonates with who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's figure out how we can make these two things work, right? So there's a lot of overlap between, dentistry and business. You kind of have to be an entrepreneur, yeah. You have to be an entrepreneur to run a good practice, unless, you decide to practice with someone else and then they run the office and that sort of thing. And oftentimes, and this is not a knock on physicians, they're extremely intelligent, but oftentimes they're not good businessmen.
Yeah.
And so, we've had people like that in our family, et cetera. They're just brilliant people, but, terrible with business and not successful in that realm. Anyway, so I was like, okay, hey, let's join the two. So I changed my major to business pre-dent. So I was like, okay, we're still doing
Like a
this.
half step.
Yeah. I was slowly transitioning over. And so I changed my major to business pre-dent. And the second year, my sophomore year, part of my class schedule was OChem, organic chemistry. And, well, it was interesting, man. But like, I don't know. I stepped into that water and I was like, nope. And backed out. I could have stuck it through,
Yeah.
and seeing how it went. And that wasn't even like the hardest class in the chemistry program. A lot of people suffer from PChem, which is physical chemistry. And looking back on it now, it may have been fun to go through that, but I'm glad I didn't do it for several other reasons. And so I was like, you know what? No, I'm going fully into business. And along this time, in the business school, you have an advisor that you go to, sort of a mentor of your career or, school career, academic career. And so I had Dr. Montag.
Great guy.
Solid dude. And so, yeah, I really appreciated him. And he just happened to be, head of the long-term care club as well. And so
I
was
didn't even
talking.
know they had a club. That's great.
Yeah, we did back in the day. I don't know if it's still a thing. I haven't really followed up on that. But so, I was talking to him about my goals, about what I wanted to do, the combination of medical and business. And, I wanted to be missional in nature. And he just said, have you considered long-term care? I was like, what is that? As is the response of many people, during that going to college time. Nobody hears about that. Nobody hears about, taking care of the elderly as a viable option for, a career. So, whoops. And so, in talking with him, I was like, yeah, this could be a good combination. It'd be some sort of an administrator of a healthcare community facility, whatever. So, there were several ways you could skin that cat. And so I decided, you know what? Dentistry is not for me. I'm going to go ahead and put that to the side. Additionally, I just, I felt I didn't want to be in school for 3,000 years. So, and let's just be honest, I really wasn't the best student. And you have to be a good student to do that. And by a good student, it's putting in the hours to study, to read, to memorize and regurgitate information. My learning style is more about understanding, learning concepts than just memorizing body parts.
More practical and get out there and try some.
Which is important, and obviously, to be a good physician, you have to, understand the anatomy of the body, or whatever you practice. So anyway, that's when I decided to switch to that, and then, shortly thereafter, I kind of decided to go into the long-term care route, and more specifically towards assisted living communities. The state of the skilled nursing facility is nationally, it's kind of in distress. Even back then it was, and so even more now. Just based on a lot of regulations that have come down the pipeline, the difficulty in operating a skilled nursing facility, et cetera, all that. Anyway, so I decided to go with assisted living, and so that's how I decided to get into that.
Yeah, and then it's been 8 years. No, it's
just over 10.
Just over 10 years, totally, like with your feet in this industry. So that's a long time. I know for a lot of people who go into a new career, you have a lot of expectations and thoughts, and like you think one way, then you get in, you start experiencing things, and you realize, oh man, this is so much different. What is something, or it can be a list of things that you would like your younger self coming into this industry to kind of know, to maybe catch up and get to speed a little bit quicker, to like know how to operate?
So it was interesting because I didn't just go in, I guess, head first into the industry. Yeah. I was actually starting my master's degree in healthcare. After, we won't get into that, but
you can if you want to. We got time.
No, we tried to start a business, and it just didn't pan out. Yeah, basically, and I was like, you know what, let's get my master's degree. Well, trying to figure stuff out.
Sure.
But anyway, during that time, doing my master's in health, MBA in concentration in healthcare, I started working at Morning Point as a receptionist. And so my journey into this has been nothing, everything but linear.
Yeah, I was going to say as a receptionist, I had no idea.
Yeah, so I started off as a receptionist, just, getting my foot in the door. 2, I needed a job. So, let's do that, evening receptionist. And so from there, it's just been a journey of, going from that job to another job to another job to, filling in here, filling in there. So I started as a receptionist, part-time receptionist, then I moved into a full-time receptionist position. Along those 2 times, I was filling in for activities directors if we had turnover or if they needed something.
Mm-hmm.
I was helping in memory care. I was helping in different areas. So it was kind of like a self-imposed director in training program, during that time. So I got to see everything. And honestly, I feel like that was the best way for me to do that.
Yeah. Get to touch everything.
Yeah, absolutely. You get into everything. And so, then from there, naturally just advanced to business office director, and then, just wait for my turn, for something to open up and for me to pounce on it. And I just happened to have been, the winter of 2015, or, beginning of 2015, when I was asked to come down to Calhoun. I said, yeah, let's do it.
So you were doing all of these, like the receptionist work, the filling in for the activities director, memory care stuff at a different community?
At several different communities.
Oh, it
so
was
actually, so I
area.
started off in the Shallowford community before it was turned into a full memory care, which is a beautiful restoration there, or remodeling. And then I moved to Greenbrier Cove, and there I was business office director. And then I moved to the Hickson location for some time, and then I just kind of, I guess I was put officially into a director in training program.
Okay, nice.
And then just kind of bounced around different ones.
Yeah.
And then that's when I was offered that position.
Yeah. And then how long were you the executive director?
Almost 4 years, I would say. Like 3.5.
Yeah. 3.5
years. Yeah, almost 4 years.
What makes a good executive director?
That's a really good question, man. It's, everyone has a different temperament and a different leadership style, right? But I think a good executive director is one that is involved in the day-to-day lives of not just the residents, but, the team, your staff, somebody that is consistent, but also, when there's just, several different ways to look at it. But
Sure.
when I try to identify a good ED from one that struggles, the good EDs are always in the trenches.
Yeah.
They're always there with their team. They're putting on gloves, man, and they're doing care. They're putting on gloves, and they're serving or even cooking food. You're getting called at night, and you're coming in to help, with all of that. There's 1,000 other things that an ED has to do, but that is the most important, to make sure that you bring sort of cohesiveness to the team by being present.
Sure.
And by actually connecting with your team.
Do you think that you ever struggled, or EDs usually struggle with, like, life balance? Because I know with these types of roles, like you're saying, you're going in at night, you're on call. In a lot of ways, it's like being a physician on call all the time, because you're always needed. Were you encouraged to, like, strike some type of a balance, or was that kind of like led on your plate, like, oh yeah, I'll figure it out myself? And
I'm usually the type to figure it out myself anyway. And, I will have to say that in this industry, I don't know that it's the expectation from the industry, but it is the reality that work-life balance is a little more towards work than it is life. Yeah. So it truly has to be a calling and a passion that you do this, because you're going to be doing this a lot. Yeah. You're going to be putting in the hours quite a bit. And maybe to not see results for, 6 to 8 months in any, facet, whether you're talking about, turning around a team from a culture standpoint, turning around financials, turning around, you name it, getting a good mix of residents in your community. It all takes time.
Do you think that residents pick up on the culture?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the competitive advantage.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
No, I was just gonna basically re-say it.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask them because I've had some previous experiences within a company where the culture was a huge problem when I came in, and then I was there for 2.5 years, and my style would have been like, okay, well, clearly of the 10 apples, there are 6 bad right here. Burn them, throw them out, fire them, whatever. Just very like cut and dry. Hey, we do not tolerate X. But the person that I worked under had a little bit different mentality of just kind of take the Band-Aid off slowly, try and offer probably more opportunities for grace than you should have been offered. And like it was more of like a long-term changing of the culture. Have you seen both of these types, and do you think that one is better than the other? And like how did you go about changing the culture so that it can effectively increase resident happiness and experience?
Yeah, I do think it's gradual.
Yeah.
And not because you shouldn't get rid of the bad apples, but because when you first go into some, organization, you have to get to know the people. You have to understand what the current culture is, what those bad apples are and why they're bad apples. And you have to gain the trust of at least a majority of your team, right? And so that takes some time. The best advice I got in the beginning of my career was you just need to go out there, shake hands and kiss babies. And I took that to mean you have to build trust.
Yeah.
And not just with, a team, but also the community at large, etc. But from a culture standpoint, you have to start with baby steps. And in both of my latest leadership positions, that's basically what I've done. You start slow. You don't make any changes. You don't do anything. You start getting to know people. You learn about their families, their likes, dislikes. And then you start going from there, right? And you start identifying what those are. And, one of the best quotes I heard on leadership as it relates to culture was you have to have high grace, but also high accountability. So you have to have them both. And so when you say I've identified these 6 people and they need to go, they probably do need to go. And there's something to be said also for doing something like this gradually, because you can hurt the team by getting rid of all these people, quickly, but just as much as you can damage the team by allowing them to stay on for a while. So part of building culture is also protecting the culture. So you have to protect the culture by ensuring that the culprits of toxicity are taken care of. Some you do give them a chance, obviously, and you try to coach them.
Sure.
But
coachability is huge.
You'll know who doesn't want to change or won't change or has a really hard time changing, and it's not your responsibility at that point to
they've made their choice.
Change them. Yeah, correct. Yeah. And so your responsibility is to your team, your culture, and your clients.
So thanks for sharing that. Shifting gears just a little bit. So executive director, and you said that there's some overlap in the leadership aspects between that and the director of asset management. What does the director of asset management do? And do you think that role is important for small, medium, large size community, like senior living communities? Or what level is that role appropriate?
That's a really good question. I would say that, for my previous role, which is operations specialist, essentially.
Yeah, you're overseeing everything.
Yeah, you're kind of looking at a region or a bigger scope of communities. To asset management. You go from leadership of specific communities to more of a high level view of the communities, such so that you can give account for where we are, in the portfolio. Where are we right now with this initiative, mostly around financials. So, the way that I would describe asset management is essentially asset management is kind of been a little bit difficult to explain for me, but so asset management, so REITs or companies that invest in the ownership of buildings, right? That don't manage the property, have asset managers that implement whatever business plan needs to be implemented in order to take, no, not implement, maybe hold the management team accountable to implement the business plans that have been decided by the ownership group, right? And so their role is to keep up with the management group, with the financials, with the performance of the building, comparing, different KPIs, etc. The position that I'm in is more of an internal asset management.
Because you're operating on this property.
Because we're the management company. Yeah. Right. But there's also communication with different ownership groups, that own the properties that you manage. Excuse me. So you're kind of acting not necessarily on their behalf, but in a way that you can facilitate the seamless communication or implementation of these business plans with the ownership group, outside of maybe, let's say that you also own and operate, because there are plenty that own and operate their own communities as well. And
which is more common, by the way, because just for clarification, for anybody who may be listening and maybe not be as familiar, such as me, you have two buildings. One of them is owned by Dominion, the property, and then they also operate as a management company. Then there's another option where you have this property that is owned by someone, and you are operating, essentially leasing the building under your brand for Dominion, and they own the property, so you're leasing it. Is that what I'm understanding?
It could be that way, but I think most of the time it's sort of either a joint venture or a management agreement, where you don't own the asset or own a part of the asset, and your bigger responsibility is to manage and operate that building, right, for the ownership group.
Regardless of the brand. It could be your brand, their brand, doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, it depends on how you want to structure that. Yeah, correct.
It seems like real estate, and there's so many creative ways.
We happen to use our brand for that. Part of our portfolio is mostly owned by a REIT, and we manage that for them, but we also have ownership on that. And then, another part of our portfolio is owned and managed by Dominion Senior Living, but it's all under the brand of Dominion Senior Living and Everlawn.
Gotcha. That's super interesting. So, if I may recap, what you actually do is you are a communicator between a lot of these different parties, and then you're also looking at the potential future properties that you may want to acquire for either the building of or the operation of.
Kind of. So, yeah, that's all part of it, right? So it's KPI management, I would say, and then risk management, trying to see into the future as to what could potentially come in from a financial standpoint and distress the properties. But I also wear different hats in this position. I'm not only doing that. I'm kind of involved in operations. Given my background, I think it's a good fit for me to do that. I stick my foot in the sales side as well. So there's a little bit of everything happening. Also on the, not necessarily like tech implementation, but I sort of self-imposed the spearheading of looking for technologies that could increase efficiencies and
How long have you been doing that?
I mean, honestly, it just as it comes. It's like, oh man, this could be useful for that, but also it has to fit the overall strategy of Dominion, etc. So yeah, I would say those few things. From a sales standpoint, I help keep track of those KPIs and communicate. We have weekly calls with what we call focus communities, anybody under 94%, and so we try
94% occupancy.
Correct.
For like what period of time? A day, a week, a month?
A month. We're pretty flexible on that. If they drop below that, we kind of go back on there. But the operations team is constantly talking with them. So there's if somebody dips down below for a week or two, we don't really need to mess with that. If we see that it's going to be more consistent, then we talk about strategy and everything that comes with the sales strategy on that. So, but yeah, that's in a nutshell.
So is your role needed?
Is my role needed?
I know it's kind of a funny question.
It is a good question. I would say it depends on what your goals are as an organization.
Yeah.
A lot of these roles are contracted out. There's almost always somebody doing asset management for these to make sure that KPIs are hit. Somebody has to keep track of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say it seems like it would be to your advantage to have someone internally who can do that, and like you're saying, wear a couple of other hats, sales, operations, because a contractor will give you something, and then someone who's actually working under the same roof will give you hopefully something similar, but usually the alignment is a little different.
Yeah.
It seems.
Yeah.
The day-to-day relationships what
Absolutely.
you're building. So on the sales side of it, I was recently spying on you on Facebook.
Ooh.
LinkedIn.
There you go.
And Nick Jamison, the vice president of business ops for American Healthcare something.
Yep.
He had this post, which I wish I could show it. It's kind of funny because it's got like the clap hands in all caps. Your old leads aren't dead. They just need more time. New leads won't fix all of your problems.
That's
of
right.
which Aldo said, yes.
I did.
Lead gen is vital, but is useless without lead management. Well memed, because there was a meme involved.
That's right.
It was really funny.
It was well memed.
So let's talk about new leads, old leads.
Mm-hmm.
Just I'm going to leave it open to that, and I'll ask some more pointed questions. But talk to me about what your
new leads and old leads.
New leads, old leads. Like, what do you do to manage them? How do you make sure that you're managing them well? So, for example, just to interject,
question. Yeah.
I've had some work that I've done in real estate, and it's wholesaling. And when it comes to leads, like your ability to manage a lead effectively and make sure that you follow up when you say you're going to follow up and not let things fall through the cracks is actually really hard if you don't have like a very specific system set up.
Correct.
That almost won't let you
Correct.
drop it through the cracks. So what do you do? How does your team do that?
Excellent question. So, like you so well put, there's and I tend to think of sales as three different boxes. You have lead generation, lead management, and closing. Mm-hmm. And if they're kind of interdependent on one another. If you don't have new leads, you can't manage them because you don't have leads.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And if you're not managing your leads, you're not going to close them.
Yeah.
You're just not. You might get a few that are emergency leads coming in. It's like, I need placement now.
Yeah, timeline's just super quick.
Yeah, and that's mostly around memory care, some AL.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, those are the three things that we really try to look at. For lead generation is an interesting one, and it shifts, right? It shifts based on demographics, your market, etc. Some markets are better than others when it comes to getting leads. It's not as saturated. You're not as isolated, etc. So there's different things that we do to deploy that. You always have to have like just the old school pounding the pavement, making relationships with potential referral sources that are going to send you people,
such as hospitals,
discharge planners, professionals such as elder law attorneys.
Elder law attorneys. Wow, that's I wouldn't have thought of that one.
Yeah, elder law attorneys. You have financial planners. One thing I learned from my previous life from VP of sales was, when people are in distress and they need something, they go to 3 or 4 places. They go to their church or their religion. They go to their family. They go to their attorney, and they go to their financial planner. Because they have to consult those 4 things. And so you go where they go. And that's something that we kind of try to teach as well. At Dominion, you go where the leads are. You go to the churches. You go to financial planners, you go to attorneys, and, obviously hospitals, because, there's old people there.
How do you go to the churches? I'm very fascinated with this one.
You build a relationship with them, right? And you try to provide value with, to them. One of the ways that we do it, it's you try to involve churches with your community, because oftentimes
visitation, that kind of thing,
visitations, etc. So hey, come, this person is here that would love to see you, and oftentimes we find that pastoral staff like to come and have devotions and have, words with people. And so we have them come in. So it's like a little bit of a partnership from a spiritual standpoint, right? And so besides that, we try to offer seminars to churches around, topics that would interest the senior population or the adult child, like, fraud. How do you handle fraud? That's a huge thing. There's a lot of people scamming, the elderly. How do you plan for the future? How do you pay for assisted living? How do you do this? How do you do that? And the topics that are of interest from a health standpoint, et cetera. So that's one way to do that. Other ways to do that is, hey, let's do an event and let us sponsor it, kind of thing, like sponsored by Morning Point or Dominion or Brookdale, whoever else is out there. And so anyway, that's just kind of how we do it. You build relationships and partnerships, and you try to impact the community together.
Yeah. So you said you've been searching around for like software efficiencies. How many pieces of software have you kind of brought in or helped change or make more efficient over the time of this tenure at Dominion?
I think I've helped to introduce a couple of ideas. Let's say, the actual technology itself varied because we were looking at. So we implemented a digital marketing company. Nice. We talked about that before. And we just now added, I guess another component on top of that, another company on top of that initiative to help, to help find hidden leads, essentially in our website. It's called Rubric. If you guys don't know about Rubric, check them out. ROOBRK. Awesome company. Really cool product.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor.
Just kidding.
Not a sponsor. Yeah, I don't get paid for that. So. What was I saying?
Rubric, the software is...
the different software implemented. We've looked at several different things that we're trying to line up for later, like creating efficiencies around admissions and paperwork. So there's several different things around that. So that's a big deal. So there's some companies out there for that. Been messing around with what BI products look like, but right now the software that we have is doing okay. So it's doing well. So we use Yardi, the juggernaut out there, and we use basically all their stuff. We use their billing, their CRM, and their EHR, and they have a BI tool that we're starting to use more now, and they've really invested a lot into that, and so it's starting to pay off, and we're getting some pretty good graphic KPIs.
Yeah, sweet.
Out of that. So
I love a good graph. I love a good graph.
Me too.
What does BI stand for?
Business intelligence.
Business intelligence. Okay.
That's right.
Maybe a newbie question.
Yeah, no, that's good.
We're only on episode 3. So.
Yeah, I'm just throwing out acronyms like you.
Yeah. I got AO, assisted living, some of the other KPIs.
That's right.
I got that.
Looking into other stuff as well from an HR standpoint, like just trying to automate as much as this is my mind. My company might be kicking me under the table and just say, shut up, but my whole thing is like, how can we create efficiencies the best way that we can? Well, at the same time, if you implement too many things, number one, too quickly, it's too much.
Can burn people out.
Yeah, exactly. Secondly, if you implement too many things that are, unrelated, you need to have a common point. So you have to do it strategically. Yeah. And so trying to do it slowly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So over the course of past 15 or so years, I've used... I can't believe it's almost been 15 years. Yeah, since I've started doing little business stuff online, especially during college. But when I started my first company, you figure out all of these new little apps that are coming out that you can implement just in a website alone, from chatbot to whatever, and email campaign stuff, and your ad sales management, all these different pieces of software that you end up using, and now more and more they're being coupled and joined in together, so all turning into these big snowballs, and then you can pick a few. So it'll be interesting to see what the next several years pan out, especially in this industry, because there's a lot of room for growth, I think.
Yes, for sure.
Within this one, there's still a lot of paper trailing that goes on. Like how do you digitize that? How do you move that into the next?
There's a few good companies out there doing that, and I do see some consolidation happening, like you're talking about. And hopefully we'll see something good. Oftentimes oftentimes when, consolidation happens, it's just like this giant company taking over.
Yeah.
And anyway, so yeah, kind of going back to the lead thing. So there's the lead generation part of it, and we try to support our teams, but there's nothing like, creating the relationships. So we try to support our teams with digital ads, with, the rubric thing I told you about, with, trying to implement, send resources where, the community best thinks that we're going to get bang for the buck. Of course, we A/B test everything, make sure that we're getting a return. So that's, lead management it's pretty straightforward. I mean, lead generation. Lead management is a tough one, right? And you do need a good CRM that's, going to make it as simple as possible for the sales team to be able to keep track of it. The one we have right now, Yardi's, it's doing a decent job. They had a major upgrade recently over the last several months, and we just upgraded to their newest platform, and it's doing what it can to go from like the legacy software that it was to some of the new stuff, and they're doing a lot in that realm. But anyway, so we have to not only be able to use a system, but we have to also have the right behaviors. So
from your team,
and you can track those behaviors with the CRM, and that's really, I would say, the most important thing that we try to do. We need to track the behaviors that create, the funnel, and by funnel I mean like, from lead to move in, and so we do on a weekly basis when we talk about that, we talk about all the leads, where they are in their stages, and we talk about next steps and that sort of thing. But then also we look at how many phone calls have you made, in the last month or the last week.
That's what I was going to ask. Behaviors. These are the behaviors.
These are the behaviors. Phone calls, touch points. How much time have you spent with these people? And you can track that. How much time you spent with them? How, what kind of follow-ups you've done, your notes. We can see all that, and it's not for micromanagement or doing Overwatch, but it's more like it's to understand. Yeah, it's data. It's exactly right. Knowing like, okay, well, we can tweak here. If you just do this differently, or a little less of this and a little more of that, so that your time spent is net zero, and increase your closing volume, then great. And so, and there's some people that are really good closers but terrible managers, and there's some people that are great managers but like terrible closers. And so we have to get with the team on that as well. Sometimes it's the salesperson brings them in, tours them, manages that lead all the way to the ED closes them, because they're the closer. Oh,
I didn't know that. Executive director is always usually the closer.
No. But that's the team. You can make if you probably want a salesperson that can close.
Yeah.
But if the ED is a better closer, it's
whoever's the best closer, put him in front of
put him in the front. Yeah. Put him in the close.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes our BODs are the best closers or managers. So.
Something cool that you mentioned about the funnel. I don't know what kind of graphic representation Yardi gives you, but does that allow you to see, let's just say you have 4 stages in the funnel, and if you have a buildup of leads in like one position, then you can know like how to give more attention to that specific area. Like that's really sweet.
Yeah, it's actually a literal funnel. You got new leads, you've got prospects and tours, and then move-ins. And so you kind of see that there. You can also break it down by lead status, and where all of your leads are. Yeah. And breaks it down, like if it's, let's say, hot, cold, warm, hot, just, we have other descriptions, but you can see everyone that's cold, everyone that's warm, everyone that's hot. Yeah. Who's changed in the last 30 days, in the last 2 weeks, in the last 90 days. Why did they change?
Where they moved?
Yeah, where in this process have they moved from or to? So that we know how to best get a plan of attack going. Yeah. For that.
That's sweet. That's awesome. So switching gears just a little bit, I wanted to ask you about over your tenure, and it can be with Dominion. It probably will be Dominion, just given the world circumstances in the past 3 years. But the most stressful like intense period that you have endured as personally and as a company involved in this industry. What was that, and what are some of the challenges you had to face and then overcome?
Yeah, man. So there's no doubt that COVID really threw a wrench in the gears for the industry, and it was very stressful.
Yeah.
But in the position that I was in, I was nowhere near as stressed as our directors were. And honestly, I would go to my executive director experience. There was no other time in my life where I was more stressed, that I was more not under the gun, but a more intense time in my life than when I was an executive director. It's a very intense position. And some people make it look easy, and some people make it look really hard. Yeah, I was probably somewhere in the middle. I'd rank myself as a average or slightly above average executive director, and so but yeah, man, it was tough. I remember one instance where you get the stomach virus and it goes around, and once it hits the community, it just like spreads like wildfire. Not just residents, but staff, man. And having the staff get it is almost tougher than having the residents get it.
Everyone's taken care of.
Yeah, and so I had one time where just about all of my staff got it, and it was just me and one other RA. And we were working doubles, like night, just her and I, just taking care of these residents. The kitchen staff was okay, thankfully. And just using all the like double gloving, double masking, double, gowning, all of that just to keep ourselves healthy.
Wow.
And man, that was intense. That was like 3 or 4 days in a row of just that.
Just white knuckling through it, like
yeah, man.
That's what you had to do.
Yeah, thankfully it's about a 24 to 48 hour bug, and so we started getting some people back.
Yeah,
and so that was pretty intense, that one.
You and that RA get pretty close after that experience?
We had been pretty close. The thing I tell you about, like, just you have to form those relationships, man. Yeah, absolutely. You got to walk around, dude. You have to get out of your desk, like, and that's when we talk to EDs, it's like. Most of your work during the day is not going to get done. Like, you're not going to do anything. Well, I shouldn't say that. You're not going to get a whole lot done administratively during the day, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be out. You're going to be strategizing with people. You're going to be meeting with your teams. You're going to be helping here, helping there. You're going to be in the trenches. It was a rare day that I didn't just bust into my wellness director's office
how's
to
it
talk.
Going? Yeah.
Well, not just how's it going. It's like, hey, how's this person doing? How's that? What's going on here? Who's on hospice? Like, So, like, you got to know your residents. You got to know your team, and in order to do that, you have to be out there. And that's the part I loved. It was great.
Yeah.
And then you would come in early and you would leave late because you have to get stuff done as well. So you'd stay over. You do your reporting. You do what you need to do from an administrative standpoint. Throughout the day. And so, yeah. Then of course you do, business development stuff as well. You go out and you meet with the community and you develop relationships and you get to rub shoulders with people and, try to impact the community. At one point I started a radio program to try to, help the community understand more about aging and, memory care and that sort of thing.
Is this in Calhoun?
Yeah, this was in Calhoun. That's pretty interesting.
How'd that go?
Yeah, I got a pretty good response, man. Yeah, it was people were liking it, and so I think the more you can do for the community, the better response you're gonna get.
Yeah, be visible. That's really good feedback. Be visible as a community in your community. So kind of wrapping up, within the industry, there's a lot of change going on. I was talking to Franklin Farrow, who's co-founder and CEO of Morning Point a couple weeks ago, and we were just talking about really random things that kind of go unnoticed to the untrained eye when it comes to like visiting communities. For example, one of them was when you walk in, the smell. I've heard of some people using popcorn smell like machines.
Mm-hmm.
Franklin said they use some kind of a scent. He didn't want to give away what scent they use. So there's like these really interesting things that communities do to kind of set themselves apart. Is there anything in the next, I don't know, it can be from a year to several years in the future that you are thinking about that is exciting for like innovation within the industry?
Man, that's a really good question.
You can think on it for a minute.
Yeah, I think I will think on it for a minute. So, what Franklin's referring to are ways to improve person's perception, or first impressions of the community, and not just first impressions, but how well someone operates and how good you feel when you're in a community is a good indicator as to whether they'll move in or not.
Yeah.
Right. And so, Winnie does a great job at that. And so that's part of it. And there's several different things that you can do for that. As far as innovation is concerned, man, I am curious as to what robotics and machine learning and AI is going to be able to do in our communities. There's a few tech companies out there trying to disturb the space as well when it comes to resident care. There's some, predictive software that could help, prevent falls from even happening.
Because like camera or
sensor camera, whatever, like there's some that claim that they can predict or, prevent 90% of falls from happening.
That is a huge
That is a huge percentage. Yeah. So obviously they're expensive, but it senses you and it uses some sort of AI coding to be able to, or algorithm to be able to predict whether somebody's either the gate or if somebody gets up at night and it's they're leaning wrong, or and they can apparently predict it 30 seconds before it happens or something like that, 30 seconds to a minute before something happens.
Wow.
So there's some good opportunity there to improve quality of life. There's also opportunity there to help from a staffing standpoint. I think everyone talks about the silver tsunami. Soon we're not going to have enough people to take care of, all of these people that need help. So I'm curious to see what, AI, robotics, and, different things are going to be able to do for this industry to help maximize efficiencies in that regard.
For sure. Yeah, with more of that stuff, because it tends to be pretty expensive right now for the use of it. But as adoption increases, hopefully that these companies' bottom lines will be able to absorb more of or just be able to offer things at better costs. Their costs will go down. Yeah, for sure. Super interesting stuff. Thanks so much for coming on and giving your perspective and your story and all of the wisdom. We're going to have plenty of awesome clips to clip up for the social media and things like that. But yeah.
Thanks for having me, Seth.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate it.
Super fun.
Yeah.
All right. See ya.